How many of you have your classroom set up? Oh, we got no, oh, okay, we got one, so I know what you're gonna do next week. I know school starts at various times. I'm in Jackson County, so teachers reported back Thursday. First day of school is Thursday, next Thursday for kids. So yeah, summer definitely isn't what it used to be. But I'm a former school teacher, so I taught for 18 years. My wife is still in education. So just, know the life of being a school teacher. Been in your seat right now. So today, just gonna talk about some of the strategies we have used to do well with money on a teacher's salary. So before we jump into it, going to take a look at what financial wellness is. So heard earlier from Ryan talking about estate planning. That's a part of financial wellness. Later on, you're going to hear about TRS. That's another part, but that isn't all. So when we take a look at financial wellness, it is a position of health and not necessarily wealth. Well, what does that mean? Well, you know people, I know people that have had a lot of money, but they're not healthy. So just because you have a lot doesn't automatically mean that you're a wealthy person. So it's more about the health part of it. This is pretty basic, spending less than you make, right? In order to be financially well, you have to spend less than you earn. No matter how much money you make, if more goes out than is coming in, you're going to be broke. We're going to get to a little bit of that in a little bit to show you some examples. So addressing stress by having a plan in place. So if you aim for nothing, you'll hit it every time. So we have to have a plan in place no matter where you are financially if you want to do better. So having that plan to achieve those goals so you can achieve financial success. And this is a big one, controlling your money, not letting it control you. So I go back when I first started teaching, I was a kindergarten teacher, so a lot younger, had a lot more energy. And I realized at that time that dollar bills tend to act like a 5-year-old. So you can think of a classroom of 24 kindergarten students. If I did not tell them how to behave within about 5 minutes, you can imagine what the classroom would look like. The same thing holds true with money. If we do not tell it how to behave, it tends to act like a 5-year-old. And then finally, and that's why you're here today, empowerment, right? We want to empower you so you're informed and you can make sound financial decisions as you go forward. So why is financial wellness important? So did you know that 78% of Americans admit living paycheck to paycheck? So statistically speaking, about 8 out of every 10 people you pass are living paycheck to paycheck. And we may think, you know what, we're teachers, we don't make a lot. If I made a lot more, that wouldn't be a problem. Well, 18% of people that have report living paycheck to paycheck make over $100,000 a year. Heck, once again, if you spend more than you earn, you're going to be in trouble. So let's take a look at my story. So you can tell years ago, 24 years ago, I married Tracy, completely outkicked my coverage, so I had to change my life motto. And it became, if my wife is happy, my life is happy. It worked well, 24 years going strong. At that time, we were both first grade teachers. So taught for a couple of years, then we had our first daughter, Ava. So Tracy decided she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted her to be one as well. But I'm thinking, you know what? You're gonna stay home for like 3 months and you're gonna be so bored, you're gonna beg me to go back to work. Well, 3 months turned into 8 years and she wanted another kid. You teachers like kids. I mean, who knew? But we did it. My teacher's salary at that time was about $42,000 a year. And we currently sit where we have no debt except our mortgage. We're on track for retirement. We have an emergency fund, a 1-year emergency fund in place. But most importantly, we live wealthy lives on our moderate income. So I recently stepped away from education, but Tracy is still in it. So still making that moderate income, and we're able to do well. And that's why we're here today, is to show you some of the steps that we've taken and hopefully help you in your financial wellness journey. So once again, I mentioned I stepped out of the classroom recently. I now work for a financial wellness company, Mentoro. So today we're going to kind of review some of the things that we teach, but also kind of what my journey was, just so you can see. And we're all starting in different places. Some of us may be at the very beginning, some are down the road. So hopefully there's something for everyone in here. But no matter what, just hopefully you can take something out of this and apply it to your personal finance situation. But step one of the financial wellness journey is pretty basic. Spend less, right? We just mentioned if you spend more than you earn, you're going to be in trouble. So let's play a little game. Name that celebrity. See some famous faces up there. Tom Petty, Willie Nelson, the king of debt himself, Dave Ramsey. What do all of these people have in common besides making a lot of money? They all went broke. Every single one of them filed for bankruptcy, right? And that is the beauty with money. It doesn't matter which political party you represent. It doesn't matter what sports team you root for. The same principles hold true. If you spend more than is coming in, you're going to end up broke. Whether you make $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, or even $10 million a year, okay? So we have to focus on spending less. And I know many people hate the B word, not that one, the budget, we call it the B word, but that's where it starts. We have to analyze where our money is going. So I would encourage you, maybe starting in August, since that's right around the corner, track your spending for at least 1 month. Sometimes you want to go a little bit further, 2 to 3 months, just to see. Then you're able to see exactly how your money is being spent. And many of us, we don't realize it. And I'll just use an example. And I see people now at office every day when they eat lunch out. And it's not, I know teachers, we don't eat lunch out. We don't have lunch. But let's just say you spend $5 a day fast food eating lunch out Monday through Friday. $5, you're not going to think twice about it. Well, $5 a day is $25 a week, $100 a month, $1,300 a year, just like that. So that's why it's really, really important to analyze where you are spending money. Our subscriptions, I was looking at mine, and I don't always practice what I preach, but we were paying for Audible. I never use Audible. It's $15 a month. $15 doesn't sound like a lot, but you know what? At the end of the year, what's that? It's $175. If I found $175 when I walked outside today, I'd be happy, right? So that's probably the biggest key, is just analyze where you are spending your money. Then you can make it personal to your own situation, cut back where needed. So spend less. Next step, and it kind of coincides with spending less, saving more. So who would like to be here next summer? It looks pretty nice. Takes money though, right? Or how about, who wants to take their kids here? Yeah, you've been there, taken my 2 daughters there, and it's true. I've heard people say, if you go to Disney World, you have to be comfortable taking a $100 bill out of your pocket every day and throwing it in the garbage. True. It might be the happiest place on earth, but it's pretty expensive too. I mean, Mickey Mouse ears from Disney World at $25 are so much more special than the $5 ones at Target, right? You just have to get them. But if we want to create those experiences, we have to save up money for them. How about, have any of you ever had to replace these? Yeah, probably all at once. Or maybe this. Hottest day of the summer. Mine went out a number of years ago. Life happens. How about, guys, have you ever had to replace this? How about because of this? Yeah, that is my lawnmower. That was my actual lawnmower. So I went outside a few years ago after, in the winter, I was going to change the oil. Who knew it had a gas line leak? And there was my lawnmower. Yeah, so I didn't have to mow the grass that day. It was a good thing. But life happens, right? So people say, I just have the worst luck. Everything just goes so wrong. Well, let's face it. If you live in a house long enough, the roof will leak. If you drive a car long enough, you're going to need to replace the brakes. And that's actually a good thing when the average new car payment right now is like $725 a month. So I would, pay for the brakes. If you have kids, they're going to break something, right? A body part, something in the house, probably both. So that's the thing. We have to be prepared for when things happen. And that's what happens when we have savings set aside. We're going to talk about retirement in a little bit, but this is basically for like your short-term savings. So things that are fun, vacations, paid for vacations, paid in advance vacations are a lot better than ones that follow you home in the form of credit card debt. But also emergencies. So when you have adequate savings in place, it could turn what could be a catastrophe into an inconvenience instead. So save more. Next up, manage debt. So let's just say you wanted to upgrade your living room. And we're going to say you bought sofa, TV, everything. We're going to say $5,000, okay? You put it all on a credit card. We're going to say the interest rate normal is 18%, and you pay the minimum amount. Most credit cards set it at 2.5% of the balance. So how long will it take, any guesses, that pay this off? Remember, $5,000, 18% interest, you're making the minimum monthly payment. Any guesses? 14 years, I heard. Over 22 years. 22 years. And by the time it is paid off, it will have cost almost $12,000, more than double what it was worth. And let's face it, 22 years later, you're probably going to have upgraded your living room 3 more times. So you're still going to be paying on something from 22 years ago. This is why it's so important to stay out of debt. I mean, there's a reason we get credit card offers in the mail all the time. There's a reason that banks are big and we live in small homes, right? The interest will kill us. So if you have debt, there's 2 big approaches to getting out of debt, to eliminate it. First up, we have the debt avalanche. Now, this is the mathematically sound way of paying off debt. So what you do with the debt avalanche, you focus on paying the debt off with the highest interest rate first. Obviously, from the mathematical point of view, it makes sense. If you're paying off a $10,000 debt that has a 22% interest rate compared to a $3,000 debt that has a 1% interest rate, you're going to save money over time. But for many of us, the math didn't get us into trouble. It's the behavior. And that's where the debt snowball comes in. So the debt snowball is a systematic way of paying off debt, and you list it in order from the least amount owed to the greatest amount owed, and you plug along, and you eliminate it as you go. Why does this work well? Well, it's very similar to going on a diet. If you lose 2 pounds the first week, then you lose 2 pounds, then 3 pounds, you're motivated. You're like, hey, I can do this. I'm seeing progress, and you want to keep going. So let's take a look at the debt snowball in action. We're going to say you have the following debts. Okay, so we have credit card, auto loan, student loan, and a doctor bill. Okay, so first off, remember, we put an order from least to greatest. So you can see that, and then the minimum monthly payment, the payment that we're making. Now, here's a big key. When you're serious about getting out of debt, so once again, we looked at our budget, we found a way that we can cut back some money on what we're spending, we're gonna start applying it to our debt. So watch what happens. We're gonna come up with a way that we got an extra $100. Now that may seem like a lot, but that's basically $3 a day. So instead of paying $100 on the medical debt, we're gonna double it and pay $200. Everything else, we're gonna keep the minimum payment the same. So if we did this, 5 months later, bam, the medical debt is gone. Now we have $200 freed up. So what are we gonna do? We're not gonna spend it. Nope, we're gonna apply it to the next debt. In this case, it was the credit card. So now instead of paying $150 a month, we're paying $300.50 a month on that, keeping the other debts the same, okay? So we do that for 12 months, a year, and guess what? That debt is gone. Freed up $350, bam, we add it to the car payment. Now we're paying $850 a month on that. 8 months later, bam, that one is gone. Then we can take the rest, apply it to our student loan, and then if you do that, what is it, about a year or so later, you will be completely debt-free, okay? So think, you started off with over $27,000 in debt. Less than 3 years later, you are debt-free. Once again, this works so well because of the noticeable impact you are making right away, especially when you pay off that small debt first. Many of us buy into the misconception, oh, my parents are bad with money, my friends are bad with money, I'm just gonna be bad with money, I'm always gonna have debt. So that's why we have to change it mentally. And this is a way to do that, because we build some momentum and we're like, yes, I can do this. Step 4 in the financial wellness journey is prepare for retirement. So let's take a look at the average teacher here in Georgia. We're gonna say you start off at age 23. I know some of you maybe a little bit later, some of you could have been earlier. And we start down low, right? We start teaching and we're not making anything. So we say to ourselves, you know what? 3 years from now, I'm gonna be making more money. That's what I'm gonna save for retirement. But watch what happens to our paycheck. It becomes our lifestyle just like that. There's a thing called lifestyle creep. And what happens is, as we make more money, we increase what we spend on. So what was once we thought were just wants become necessities over time. We're like, we gotta have it. So let's just say we go through life like this. So we keep getting an increase, as a teacher, raises start coming, our steps go up, but we still live up to it. Well, we get to age 60 and we're ready to retire, but we can't. So 2 things happen. We quit, but we stay. Mentally, we check out. We're like, I don't want to teach anymore. I can't deal with it. Oh, I'm just so exhausted. But we have to go to work because we can't afford to retire. Because let's face it, we're going to probably make it to 85. And since you guys get 3 months off a year and go home at 3 o'clock every day, you'll live long. I'm kidding. So take a guess. When I taught a severe profound classroom for 8 years, and all that time, guess how many parent volunteers I had? 0, right? So we hear stuff like, oh, you teachers have it so easy. But I know how hard it is. But in all honesty, with the way modern medicine is, we probably will live past 85. But let's just say you make it to 85. Now, how are we gonna do it? Well, Mike's gonna come on after me and he's gonna explain TRS in a much more in-depth formula and show you exactly how it all works. But we're gonna do the Cliff Notes version. I think I just dated myself. Do we have Cliff Notes anymore? But anyways, we're gonna do like high end. We're gonna show you what TRS is. So basically, you get 2% a year of your highest consecutive 2 paid years. You have to work at least 10 years or be vested, pay into TRS for 10 years to be vested. So think of it, 10 is the new 30. So at least do 10 years, so you're vested, and then you're gonna have some sort of pension when you retire. So I'm gonna make it easy. Once again, Mike will explain a little more in depth, but let's just say, make the math easy. I'm gonna say You taught 30 years. God bless you, you made it, 30 years. So you do 30 years times 2%, 60%. We're gonna say your highest 2 paid years, $60,000. So you're going to get 60% of $60,000 when you retire, $36,000 a year. And that doesn't even include the cost of living. TRS pays 1.5% every 6 months cost of living, but you're gonna start off $36,000 a year. So that will go a long way. And this is, there's a video out there, one of my friends, a friend of TRS2, Dale Alexander, it's called the $1 Million Wagon. Really great. It shows how teachers, basically you can retire as a millionaire using TRS alone. Most financial professionals recommend when you retire, you draw 4% of how much you have saved a year so you don't outlive your retirement savings. Well, doing that, if you had $1 million saved, 4% the first year is $40,000. We just said $36,000. So as a teacher with the TRS formula, if you teach 30 years, you can almost retire as wealthy as a millionaire. So huge, huge benefit. But once again, I encourage you, please at least try to stay in for 10 years so you have some sort of pension. So TRS will help you in retirement. It'll cover some of it. But there should be some way, and now I don't know, I know some counties in Georgia, years ago they opted out of paying Social Security. I don't know if any of you are from one of those counties. Okay, so just be careful. You may not have Social Security unless you teach or you were taught somewhere else or had another job that you paid in for it for at least 10 years. But just know Social Security should be there for most of us some way, shape, format. So that'll help bridge the gap. The rest is our supplemental retirement savings plan. So for a teacher, that is called a 403B. Similar to a 401k. 401k is for for-profit companies. So you work in the private world, you 401k. For nonprofit organizations, some hospitals, charities, teachers, it's called a 403B. So it's just the way it's written in the tax code. So that's what you're gonna save in, 403B. So let's just say you're gonna save 5% of that to bridge that gap. So what can 5% do for you? So I don't know what you make, but the average teacher salary in Georgia is $56,000 a year. Some of you make more, some of you make less. We just went with average. So you can see what that is a month. So if you invested 5% of that, that'd be $235. But money invested, and Ryan mentioned it a little bit earlier, money invested in a 403B is taken out pre-tax. So if you invest $235, you're actually only going to miss about $200 out of your paycheck. Because if you had kept that entire amount, you would have taxes taken out, so it'd only be about $200 of purchasing power, okay? So you're still investing though, $235, okay? Because it's pre-tax. So we're gonna say you did it for 20 years, average 9% growth. Now, I do not know what the stock market is going to do in the future. If I did, I'd be on an island right now, okay? I wouldn't be in this room. So nobody knows, but when we look at the history of the stock market, between the S&P 500 and the Dow, the two major indexes that we track in this country, stocks have averaged about 10% growth a year, and that's going back to the 20s. So that's going through the Great Depression, going through world wars, going through COVID, 9/11, all sorts of things, averages about 9-10% growth a year, okay? That doesn't mean every year it grows 9%. Some years it's down 20%, other years it's up 20%. But over the course of time, about 9 to 10% a year, okay? So we're just take the average. If it did that, you would have over $150,000 in your retirement account. So basically for the price of a latte a day, you could have over $150,000 saved for retirement. So when you go back to that first chart, between TRS, Social Security, and this, you could actually be living a wealthier life in retirement than you are right now and have more disposable income. So saving for retirement. 5, and Ryan hit a lot of these, protecting what matters. So we all know the importance of having insurance for things like our home, right, when weather comes, or medical. I mean, that shows that every guy should have a boat. I mean, think if that guy didn't have a boat, what would happen? But the things that we drive, we know the importance of having insurance for those. But what about disability insurance? And Ryan touched on that. What would happen if you were unable to work? You can think of disability insurance as paycheck insurance. And the great thing is most school districts offer it, and it's not that much. And if you have at least 3 months of living expenses saved in a savings account, you can opt for the long-term disability, because if something were to take place, you would have your savings to take care of it until the long-term disability policy kicked in. So just important to think of that. And life insurance as well. Now I know no one likes to think about it, but I can promise you, every single one of you is gonna die. I know it sounds morbid, right? But you will. And if you have loved ones that are dependent on your paycheck, it is so important to have life insurance. Some of us need more. Right now, so I have a rising junior at UGA, go Dogs, and then I have a senior, going to be a senior in high school. So I have two girls, going to have college expenses, weddings to pay for down the road, all these things. So I have a life insurance policy in place that, God forbid, I drive home today, something happens, Tracy, my wife, will be able to use that money to pay for weddings, for college, those types of things. So it just depends on your personal situation. A rule of thumb that a lot of people use is you should have 10 times what your annual salary is. Once again, it varies though. So 10 years from now, hopefully both my girls are off my payroll. I don't have to have as much life insurance because I'm not responsible for them. So it just depends on your personal situation, on who you're in charge of. But if people are dependent on your paycheck to pay the bills and live life, it's important to have that protection in place. Planning your legacy. This is another big one. And Ryan talked about, all sorts of estate planning documents, and they are all very important to have. So this was a picture taken a few years ago, 7 of the most important people in my life. 2 of them have passed since then. And I'm going to tell you, I feel so blessed they had all their estate planning documents in place. It was such a sad, emotional, horrible time, but we did not have any financial puzzles to solve because they had everything laid out. So it's very important. If you don't have a will, get a will. Not that difficult to do. You can do them online now. It takes a little time, but it's important, especially if you have kids. And I'll tell you another thing too, what we've done, my family has what we call our legacy file. So I have a file in my Firebox. You could also upload it if you wanted to, make it digital, but it's all of our important estate planning stuff along with insurance policies, retirement plan accounts. So it's in this folder. So, where I am, sometimes we have tornado warnings, right? I can grab that file, we can evacuate. If, God forbid, something bad happened to my house, I have everything I need in that file to start all over. Or once again, if I were to pass, all those important documents are in one place so Tracy can go and get them and see our retirement account, our bank account, all that type of information. So once you get those estate planning documents in place, make sure that your loved one knows where they are. And I would encourage you to kind of keep it in one place so it's not hard to find, but leaving a legacy. And then finally, and this is a great one for teachers, building your wealth. So in addition to being a great teacher, my wife is also talented artistically, so she started her own canvas painting business. This is one of the classes she taught. So it earns a little additional income for us. Gosh, I guess it was about 20 years ago, I decided to write my first book. Well, that first book led to 4 other books and numerous opportunities for me. In fact, I'm standing on stage right now because I wrote that first book. So a lot of doors have opened. You teachers have so many great skills that others are willing to pay for. And teachers work harder than anyone else. When I started, it's so funny, I started my new job a few years ago, and at my first annual review, my boss said, she's like, you're doing great and all, but we give you a project on Monday morning and we expect it to be done Friday and it's done by Tuesday. You're working too fast. And I'm like, you don't understand the life of a teacher. I'm like, we get in the room at 9 o'clock, we got to get something done because at 10 o'clock, something else is going to happen. And then by noon, we got everything else going on. So just to say, teachers work harder than almost any profession that I know. So think about those things that maybe you're good at that others would pay for. A natural thing is tutoring, right? But a way just to boost your income, and that way you can build your wealth and add to your savings or pay down your debt. And then finally, for us, what really matters. So I'll never forget the day, August 10th, 2017. So I just started a new teaching position that week. First day of school was that Monday. It was a Thursday afternoon. Driving home from school, thinking, thank God it's almost Friday. Y'all know the feeling. It's like, oh, I almost made it. How in the world was I ever a teacher? That first week is so hard back. But I got a phone call that changed my life. So my dad had a stroke. 59 years old. 2 weeks before, we're at the beach, doing everything, having fun. Had a stroke in his brainstem. So that went from you and I, tube fed, confined to a wheelchair, had to wear briefs. So kind of long story short, he needed a lot of care. My mom was still 59, so she needed to work for insurance and things like that. So over the course of a couple months, we decided to sell our house. We moved in with them, actually approached my principal. I started working part-time that Christmas break. I would come home at 10:30, take him to all his therapies. Then that spring break, we still needed a caretaker. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna resign from teaching and take care of my dad. Well, he ended up passing that summer. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. And I look back on those things and I didn't earn any money. In fact, I lost money, but it was the wealthiest thing I've ever done. And I just look back, I'm so blessed and thankful that Tracy and I took care of our financial situation so I could have that opportunity, not only to bless my mom and dad, but it was a great blessing for me. And I hope none of you are ever in that situation, but to me, that's what it means to be financially well, is to be able to take advantage of opportunities that are truly important. And that's why it's important. So when it comes to your finances, it's a lot like running. So I've run 11 half marathons, and I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm training for number 12 now. And that first step is always the most difficult. In fact, Thursday I went out for a 4-mile run. I didn't want to do it. It was hot, it was humid, nasty. I'm like, I don't feel like doing it. But I took that first step, and then I built momentum. And every mile after that became easier and easier. The same thing holds true with our financial journey. Whether it's getting out of debt, building your emergency fund, saving for retirement, take that first step. And once you do, every step after that becomes easier and easier and easier, and then you'll realize you're on the path to financial freedom.